This is the notes for 1.4, solving for absolute value equations. Okay, we start with a very basic equation of absolute value of v plus 5 equals 10. To solve this, we must first get rid of anything that's outside of our absolute value symbol, in this case a plus 5. So we know to get rid of a plus 5, we subtract. So we get the absolute value of v equals 10 minus 5 gives me 5. Now, the trick with absolute value equations is we know that the absolute value of 5 equals 5. We also know that the absolute value of negative 5 equals 5. Okay, so keeping this in mind, we know that the absolute value of v equals 5, therefore we have two answers. We have 5 and negative 5. Okay, question 2 is a little bit more difficult, but here we have the absolute value of 4w minus 2 equals 6. Okay, there's nothing outside of our absolute value symbol, so right now we're good. So the first thing we do is we go ahead and we split this into two equations. We get w minus 2 equals 6. We also get 4w minus 2 equals a negative 6. Okay, so we have two separate equations and we're going to get two separate answers. So with the first equation, 4w minus 2 equals 6, we know we start out by adding 2 to get 4w equals 8. We then go ahead and divide by the 4 to get w equals 2. Okay, we then move over to the second equation and we're going to do the same two steps. We start off by adding 2 to get 4w equals negative 4. Then we divide through by the 4 to get w equals a negative 1. So in this case, our two answers are 2 and negative 1. Okay, question 3 becomes a little bit harder. We have a negative 8 outside of our absolute value symbol. So again, we must move that first. So in this case, it's bumped up against our absolute value symbol. So we know that to move it, we divide through by negative 8. Okay, and if we do that, that'll give us absolute value of v plus 6 equals a positive 10. Okay, at this point, we don't have anything outside of our absolute value symbols, therefore we can go ahead and split our equation. So we get v plus 6 equals 10, and we also get v plus 6 equals negative 10. And then we just solve it as two separate equations. We have plus 6, so we know we minus 6 to get v equals 4. And then with the other equation, we subtract 6 to get v equals a negative 16. Okay, question 4 is along the same lines. You have 4u plus 4 in absolute values minus 50 equals a negative 10. So here, we start out by adding the 50 over to get the absolute value of 4u plus 4 equals a positive 40. Okay, and then from here, since there's nothing outside of our absolute value symbols, we can go ahead and we can split it. Okay, so if we split this, we get 4u plus 4 equals 40, and 4u plus 4 equals a negative 40. Okay, so again, we just run through our steps. We know the first thing we do is we subtract 4, so on this first equation, we're going to get 4u equals 36. We then divide through by the 4 to get u equals 9. So our first answer is 9. Then over here, we do the same thing. We subtract 4 to get 4u equals negative 44. We divide through by 4 to get u equals negative 11. So our answers are 9 and negative 11. Now, two quick things I want to add that did not show up on this sheet. Okay, first off, if you have an absolute value of your equation that equals a negative, so like in this case, we have the absolute value of 4u plus 1 equals a negative 11. Okay, there is no number that the absolute value will give you a negative. Therefore, if you have this situation, it is no solution. Okay, and that also works if after your first step you have a negative. So, for example, if I had, say, absolute value of x plus 1 with a plus 10 on the outside equals 5, I know my first step would be to subtract the 10 over. Okay, but if I do that, I end up with the absolute value of x plus 1 equals a negative 5. Again, since everything's inside the absolute value symbol and it equals a negative, that's no solution. Okay. As we've seen in a couple of examples, it's okay if the original equation is equal to a negative, as long as once you're down to the absolute value, everything being inside the absolute value, it equals a positive, you can proceed. It's just when everything is in the absolute value and it equals a negative that it becomes no solution. Okay, so that is the notes for 1.4 solving absolute values.